members, committee members,
board members,
volunteers,
please
board
come.
members.
Come on, guys. Please come up. Maria.
It's the only time you should write forever.
Okay.
But I'm here.
Staff as well. I got either NCJW staff or project partner staff.
Yeah, please.
Rachel.
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, everybody? All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Hillary Self, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Council of Jewish Women in Los Angeles, and welcome here to Council House. Human trafficking is a $32 billion business. It is modern-day slavery. This press conference is to talk about how Los Angeles is working on the implementation of SB 1193, the human trafficking public posting requirement to create awareness and to help stop human trafficking. NCJWLA is proud to be hosting a press conference and trainings to implement this project. I want to first introduce Maya Paley, who is the Director of Legislative and Community Engagement. Maya has been the lead staff person here at NCJW, putting this project together, working with our partners, City of Los Angeles, CAST, Oasis USA, Jewish Labor Committee, TRUA, and Gibson Dunn Crutcher LLP, to create a process for implementation of 1193, which you'll hear more about today. And it included a poster contest and the training of volunteers. I leave it to Maya.
Thank you, Hillary. So as you heard, we're here today to announce the SB 1193 implementation project. The staff and volunteers of 6 organizations came together a few months ago to create this grassroots campaign to implement Civil Code 52.6 as established by Senator Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg's Senate Bill 1193. The law was passed in 2012 and went into effect in April of 2013. And we all felt that this law really needed to be implemented. So we came together to create this outreach project, to train volunteers from all over Los Angeles to go from door to door to inform businesses and establishments about this new law and to provide them with a poster you'll see at the end of this press conference today. Our project includes both advocating for the law to be implemented, assisting in its implementation through public and private partnerships, and raising awareness about human trafficking in Los Angeles City and County. Behind me is the SB 1193 Implementation Project Task Force, including the staff and volunteers from NCJW, CAST, Gibson Dunn Crutcher, Oasis USA, TRUA, and Jewish Labor Committee. Also here are some of the students who entered submissions into our youth poster contest, which you can see around here, and also volunteers who came to yesterday's first training where we had nearly 100 people here for the first training for this outreach project. We have our board members, our committee chairs, and of course, the elected officials who will be speaking to you this morning. Only 11 states require that certain establishments post hotline information, and California is one of them. And records show that in places like Texas and Arkansas, where the law has been implemented and posters have gone up in thousands of businesses statewide, that the number of people calling the national and local human trafficking hotlines has increased tremendously. And those callers have reported that they have called because they've seen those posters posted up on businesses, on business windows worldwide, statewide. Soon to be worldwide. We know these posters will make a difference, which is why NCJW and CAST both co-sponsored this bill. We believe in its goals and purpose, and we want to see it do what it is capable of doing. Yesterday, we had 100 volunteers in the room, from ages 15 to 85, men and women, to join this movement of raising awareness. Human trafficking, whether it be sex or labor trafficking, is happening throughout this county in our own backyards. Our volunteers are ready to go out, walk door to door, and ensure that businesses and establishments know what the law is and how they can comply with it. You'll see the poster at the end that we, as NCJW, will be funding the printing of for as long as it takes for them to be put up throughout this county. I want to especially thank the government officials here today who are here to help us launch this project and partner with us in stopping human trafficking. I will introduce each of them before they speak, beginning with Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Thank you so much, Maya, and a very good morning, everybody. I'm really honored to be here together with such great community activists, such stalwart organizations that have tackled this issue for so many years, as well as my fellow elected officials who have made this a focus of their time in office. Notably from the City of Los Angeles, Mike Feuer, our new city attorney, and Nury Martinez, our council member, as well as the twin pillars from the county who are here with us today, Don Knabe and Margaret Thomas. I want to thank all of them. And as a longtime advocate, both politically and personally on trafficking issues, it's incredible to see so many people here together. I think we would have been amazed to see this many cameras here a few years ago on this issue. It hasn't always been this way, and I want to thank the press for being here. This is one of the biggest ethical issues of our lifetime. The fact that more people are enslaved in the world today than at any point in human history is a fact that always amazes people when you say that to them, and I appreciate you passing this on. My wife Amy and I are on the honorary board of the Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking, known as CAST, and we've met with many survivors over the years, and all the misconceptions about trafficking, that it only happens overseas, that trafficking is only sex trafficking, that trafficking only happens to women. All of those things we have been able to raise awareness about, that trafficking happens in our backyard, it can happen from neighborhood to neighborhood, that it happens right here, as Supervisor Don Knabe and I were talking about on Western Avenue. It happens in mini malls, it happens in establishments that seem like reputable businesses. It happens with children, it happens with men, it happens for all sorts of reasons. And when we hear the stories of survivors, we are so compelled to action that today I think is a giant step forward, because suddenly, if you can imagine how much this force has been multiplied, imagine that times 10 million people in this county. If they know, and if they see, and if they can be the folks who say something looks a little suspicious, or somebody trafficked him or herself can actually see that there's a way out, we know that there's a better future. The other folks that are a part of this coalition, of course, the National Council for Jewish Women, I want to thank them for not only stepping up and hosting us today, but for funding these posters. That's a big deal. And I especially want to thank Maria Suarez, who is with us today. I'm in awe of your presence. I'm in awe of your courage, not just enduring what it was inflicted upon you, but how you lead your life and now lead others, which is really amazing that you make sure not only that you escape, but that you're helping others to escape as well. I'm so proud that CAST was an original co-sponsor of SB 1193, which connects people with resources out there to stop trafficking and to rescue people from it. And I want to thank our President Pro Tem of the Senate, Darrell Steinberg, for his leadership. I know he couldn't be with us today. But simply put, this requires that mass transit hubs, emergency rooms, liquor stores, and other establishments display information about human trafficking, including the hotline numbers to CAST, which is 888-539-2373, and the National Human Trafficking Resource Center, which is also 888-373-7888. I think I've already covered some of the misconceptions about trafficking, but trafficking is happening in this city right now. Trafficking is happening maybe around the corner from where you live. Trafficking might happen in the home next to where you are today. Do something about it. Help us step forward. So let me say a few words in Spanish, and again, just say my thanks. And the City of Los Angeles, while we've taken great positions, in my administration, we're going to take more than just positions. We're going to implement the finest law enforcement and community coalition to make sure, together with the county, which has wonderful leadership on this, to make sure that trafficking ends here in Los Angeles. I know we have a couple Spanish stations, so let me just brief with that. Es un honor estar aquí, rodeado por personas que están tan profundamente comprometidos con la libertad, la democracia y la dignidad. California tomó un paso en la lucha contra la trata de personas al pasar el proyecto de ley del Senado 1193, que fue presentado por el senador Steinberg y patrocinado por la Coalición para Abolir la Esclavitud y la Trata. La ley requiere que estaciones de transporte, salas de emergencia, tiendas, licores y otros establecimientos que muestran rótulos con información sobre la trata de personas, en particular las líneas de CAST y el Centro Nacional contra el Tráfico Humano. A las víctimas de la trata de personas, estoy aquí para decir que la ciudad de Los Ángeles y el condado de Los Ángeles no se ha olvidado de ustedes. Estamos aquí para ayudarle a recuperar su libertad y como su alcalde, yo también soy su aliado. Y yo siempre haré lo que puedo en apoyo. Muchísimas gracias.
Now I'd like to call up City Attorney Mike Feuer.
Good morning. I want to thank NCJW for not only hosting today, but for being a fundamental part of this partnership. And of course, I want to thank our leaders at CAST for their work on behalf of so many people who without you would never have a voice, who are standing here today. Perhaps a decade ago, I received a phone call from a friend of mine. She was very concerned because a woman who was performing child care and housekeeping duties for a neighbor in a West Side neighborhood had let her know, my friend, that she was enslaved. And she was desperate to try to find someone who could help her get out of that house. And we worked together, and my friend got her the help that she needed. But it was a turning point in the recognition for me of how pervasive human trafficking can be. Then, in 2012, as the chair of the Judiciary Committee in the State Assembly, I was privileged to conduct the hearing on this bill, SB 1193, and to manage the bill on the floor. And here as City Attorney, I enforce this legislation. What does that mean? It means that businesses throughout our region, throughout our state, are going to be posting notices like this. And it was said at the outset, this notice and similar notices throughout the country have had a meaningful impact already in other states. It can have that impact here. In the truest sense of the word, a liberating impact on women and men who are victims of human trafficking, be it sex trafficking or otherwise. This is a cause. It's a cause that everyone assembled before you has pledged to join. It's a cause that CAST, the NCJW, are leading. It's a cause that's been led by individuals who have the courage to find a way out of sex trafficking or human trafficking otherwise themselves, and are helping to lead the way for others. Now, my office has taken the step of sending out letters to nearly 200 businesses throughout our city, alerting them to their obligation to post these notices. We're doing this because it should be a collaboration. It should be a positive thing. Businesses should want to post these notices. The legislation, however, states that if they don't post those notices, there are penalties, and my office is charged with enforcing this law. But let's do it by collaboration, as a partner, as partners, as a team. Thank you very much for being here to highlight for all in our community the significance of the steps being taken today.
I'd like to now call up Supervisor Ridley Thomas.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. As has already been mentioned, this is obviously a critically important issue. It may appropriately be defined as the moral issue of our time. Imagine, if you will, 12-year-old girls being subjected to enslavement, performing more sex acts in a day than most people will engage in a month or more, up to 10 to 20, starting at age 12. It is inhumane. It's sickening. It is disgusting for a grown person, typically a man, to subject a child to these indecent and inhumane acts. Frankly, they are victims. Let's get the record straight. They are not prostitutes. And they are essentially subjected to what I consider statutory rape. We have said repeatedly, we will assert it again, our children are not for sale. And so, I want to give a shout State Senate, Darrell Steinberg, for his continuing leadership on a range of issues. I want to give a shout out to CAST. They are stand up. Somebody say CAST is in the house. And we are particularly grateful to the National Council of Jewish Women here in Los Angeles for their long-standing leadership on a range of issues. I think we ought to give them a big round of applause. Well, this creates an opportunity for all of us to do what we can. Low risk, non-confrontational. We can, in many respects, be more active, good Samaritans. You see something that's awful, take the appropriate course of action that is being prescribed today. It's not tough, but it's important. It can be the change for these young girls, and in many instances, young boys, whose lives are obviously impacted in a very, very negative way. Let's make that a positive impact. I'm pleased that the Chairman of the Board of Supervisors is here with me, the Honorable Don Knabe. Let it be clear that we are hand in hand working on the issue of human sex trafficking. You will see a motion as early as tomorrow to expand this program that is now focused principally in the city of Los Angeles to the entire county of Los Angeles. We're essentially saying that we want these Johns and pimps to have their own language, their own special codes and phrases to signal that they want to sell or purchase children. We have our language. And our language is more powerful. Our language is more consequential, and we expect to visit that upon them with the appropriate professional force. And with these posters, we will let the victims know that we will have our code for them, a code that says we care and we are here to help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'd like to now call up Supervisor Don Knabe.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Are we all through?
Anyway, we're just getting started.
Again, it's a privilege for me to participate here today and to thank our host for their ongoing support and enabling of these signs that will be allowed in our various facilities throughout the county. This is something that the county has been working on very hard over the last several years. It was brought to our attention by, I call, a couple of our Wonder Women in the probation department. You know, you always think of this kind of being in the third world, some other foreign country or foreign land, when its reality is it's right here in front of us. In fact, just last week I was up in Sacramento and did a press conference with 8 members of the state senate to increase the penalties for the Johns as well as the pimps, to create a situation, because what's happening, like with our gangs, it's much easier to deal with these young ladies 6, 8, 10 times a night than it is to deal with guns or drugs. And so we need to toughen those laws, and that's what we're attempting to do. But we've really worked hard over the last several years to raise the awareness of this issue. From my perspective, as you heard the other speakers say, not only right here in Los Angeles, in the county of Los Angeles, and the entire region, the Southern California area, but our nation. And I testified in front of the Foreign Affairs Committee. It's amazing how many people realize now that this issue should have the same credibility and same awareness as the war on drugs did many years ago. It is that bad, that horrific, and that heinous. We need to do something about it. So these are all stepping stones, little blocks we're putting together, as Ridley Thomas said, Supervisor Ridley Thomas said, to change the language. To change the language, that those folks out there know that our eyes are on them. Public information, there's nothing better than to allow these folks the opportunity to turn these people in. It's out there. I don't care what kind of a store it is. It's been very interesting. We've been doing the Metro and MetroLink with the notifications as well as billboards. How many folks have been turned in because of that? Sometimes it's been a false alarm, but more than not, it's the awareness. These young kids need the same kind of attention that after 9/11 we said, if you see a bag on a train, tell somebody. In the same kind of situation, if you see something, a young girl with her head down, a guy dressed up very studly like, and you know, it's all the same kind of a situation. It's just awareness and awareness. So we're really excited to be here to participate. As Mark said, we will bring in a motion to make sure that all of our facilities, our emergency rooms, every place that we do, through our business license folks, are aware of the signs, and another opportunity for people to be aware to save their lives, because we need to do everything we can do to get this message out to the public, because most importantly, we should say no more, not in our streets, not in our young girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to now call up Councilmember Nury Martinez.
Well, it is getting a little late. It took me over an hour, and even then, I still forgot my daughter's lunch. So sorry, but I did not want to miss this opportunity to address this serious issue. I want to thank our National Council of Jewish Women of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti, and our City Attorney Mike Feuer for having this press conference and for asking me to speak today. You see, I know this issue firsthand. A couple of weeks ago, I had an opportunity to go out with WISE in San Fernando Valley in Council District 6 in Van Nuys, and I saw firsthand with these children what they look like. We arrested almost 23 people that night, and I got to see firsthand how young these children are. When someone told me about the 2 tracks in my district, I had always grew up here my entire life. I knew that this stuff happened. But the 2 main tracks in the San Fernando Valley for sex trafficking are in Van Nuys and on the corner of Lankershim and San Fernando Road. But when I went out that night, we arrested a lot of people, but what I was shocked to see was how young these girls are. We're talking about 13, 14, 15-year-old girls. These are someone's children. They're someone's sisters. These children sometimes are part of foster care system, and they fall prey to these men who sex traffic them across the state, and they end up in Los Angeles for a couple of days, and then they get sent to San Diego for another couple of days, and get sent back up to Seattle, Portland, and Las Vegas, and that's how it works. It's called a circuit. And in my district, a lot of people think I'm crazy for talking about this stuff. It's a dirty little secret in the San Fernando Valley, but the problem is there. These children need help, and the businesses that protect these types of pedophiles need to understand that through this sign and increased awareness, our community is going to stand up and start turning this stuff in, because we can't see any more children in the streets as young as 13, 14 years old. That is someone's daughter, and we need to do everything we can, humanly possible, to be able to protect them. The motels that sit along Sepulveda Boulevard, I'm looking forward to making sure that they increase the awareness and that we post the signs to ensure that the pimps understand that we are watching and that we want to take our community back, and that no other children will be prey to these kinds of things. Thank you very much again to all of our allies for standing up for children today, and for making it known that this dirty little secret in the San Fernando Valley is well exposed, and that we're here to fight to make sure that every child is protected. Thank you very much. En español, muchas gracias. Soy la concejal Nury Martinez del Valle de San Fernando. Hace unas pocas semanas tuve la oportunidad de salir con la policía y trabajamos 2 áreas donde usualmente hay prostitución, una en Van Nuys y una en North Hollywood en Sun Valley. Son los lugares más frecuentes para la prostitución. Lo que me alarmó más fue la edad de las niñas que están caminando las calles, que son víctimas de estos hombres que las trafican de estado a estado. Estamos hablando de 13, 14 años. Estas niñas trabajan toda la noche, pasan 2, 3 días en el Valle de San Fernando y luego las mueven a otra ciudad, a otro estado. Y con este tipo de campaña queremos dejarles saber a la comunidad de que vamos a poner estos signs en los hoteles y donde se frecuenta este tipo de actividad, para que podamos proteger a estas niñas, para que no caigan víctimas de ese tipo de tráfico sexual. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'd like now to call up Kay Buck, Executive Director of CAS.
Good morning, everyone. About 2 years ago, a group of survivors of human trafficking gathered around a table at CAST, and they decided that they wanted to bring greater awareness about human trafficking right here in our backyard, not only to the general public, to survivors who are still enslaved. They wanted it to be in the form of a poster with a hotline number on it so that victims could reach out for help. Over the course of a year, these survivors wrote letters, they spoke to legislators in Sacramento and here locally, adding their voices to the political process and standing up for those who are still enslaved. Last week, these survivors gathered around the same table at CAST, and they chose this poster. It has the hotline number of CAST as well as the national hotline, which will be in strategic business establishments throughout LA County. I am so grateful to Senator Steinberg, who championed this measure right from the beginning, and for the partnership and leadership of the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls in Sacramento. Today we are launching the poster distribution for LA County, but statewide similar initiatives are already moving forward and implementing this law. Thank you to Mayor Eric Garcetti for his longtime support of the anti-trafficking movement here and across the country, and in particular for his support of this initiative citywide. Thank you to LA City Attorney Mike Feuer's office for spearheading the mailing of the enforcement notice so that businesses know how to comply with this law. I'd also like to thank Chairman Knabe and Supervisor Ridley Thomas for their amazing leadership for taking this initiative countywide. 2 years ago, we didn't think it was possible to have such breadth of support, and now that is happening today. And without our boots on the ground, our coalition partners, and as a coalition, we really could not have done this without our partners. And I'd like to thank Hillary and her staff and volunteers from the National Council of Jewish Women, Los Angeles, OASIS USA, Jewish Labor Committee, Western Region, and TRUA. They, as I said before, have been the boots on the ground, and they've got information together about compliance. They are funding the posters to put in strategic places throughout the county. And last but not least, we need to thank our pro bono attorneys at Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher. They have spent hours and hours over the last several months helping us with this initiative. So it has taken a lot of hard work, but I'm here to say that with this widespread support in the city and the county, it has been worth it. Across the nation, states that have enacted public posting requirements, laws, they have seen significant increases in calls from victims and from Good Samaritans to their trafficking hotlines. When victims have access to this information, they will call, and their lives will be changed because of it. Let me tell you about a CAST client who I will call Tina. Tina had been enslaved for 8 years in a country abroad. She was mistreated. In fact, she endured almost unspeakable violence at the hands of her trafficker. And she lived in fear for her life. When the traffickers decided to move to the United States, they decided to take Tina with her. At the U.S. consulate, Tina received a small card with the hotline number on it. And she was so smart, she kept it in her bra strap for several months before she had the opportunity to call the hotline. It took tremendous courage, but one evening, she did call the hotline number. And that moment, CAST's emergency response team sprang to action and arranged for her escape. Today, she is now free. We provided her with food and clothing and shelter and legal services for about 18 months. So today, I'm happy to say that Tina has a good job. She is treated with respect and dignity at her job, and she gets a fair wage. She is very active in her local community and her church, and is actually one of the survivors who helped us advocate for this law. Tina and so many others like her, they know firsthand that having access to a hotline number has the power to change a life. And I'm confident that with this broad support that we have, this collaboration, we will bring freedom and hope to many people in this great city and in this great county. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kay. And now I would like to bring up Maria Suarez, who is a volunteer coordinator here for the Women Helping Women Department at the National Council of Jewish Women, and also was a client of CAST several years ago. And Maria is a human trafficking survivor who is going to tell you her story.
Good morning. Thank you very much to all of this. Actually, I'm overwhelmed with all of this media and knowing that today it's awareness for human trafficking and for victims to help them. I want to tell you that my case happened in the 70s, and a lot of people don't know about my case because it was old. But today I can tell you that at the age of 15, I was sold for $200. My family reported my case to the police. My family did all kind of calls to everybody, trying to get me out of there from my trafficker, and no one did anything. The police even said that it was okay if I don't report nothing. If I'm okay, if I'm not saying nothing, it's because I'm okay. I was not okay. My trafficker was 68 years old. And after the 3 days that I was in his house, he abused me in every way that you can imagine. It was not only the rape, but it was the beatings, it was violence, it was emotional, it was physical, it was different ways, to the point that I was there over 6 years. I endured that suffering for over 5 years, almost 6. And then after that, my trafficker got killed, and I ended up going to prison. Not only that I went to prison, I got charged with life, 25 to life. I spent 23 years in prison for something that I didn't, for a crime that I didn't commit. Anyways, however, being in prison, I'm not proud of being in prison. That's not something to be proud of it. I'm proud of what I got out of prison. Because being in prison, I learned that I can be somebody, and I can actually come out and help others and do the work that I do today. Today, I work for National Council of Jewish Women, and I'm very proud to represent them. CAST was one of the organizations that helped me to get my T visa, and I'm also very grateful. And I thank all of you for being here today, because with all of you, we're making people aware that this is happening and continues happening. But we're going to stop it. We're going to stop it because we're all together. And
So I don't know about you, but I'm about to cry.
Buenos días, muchas gracias por todos estar aquí. Soy una sobreviviente de tráfico humano que estuve sometida al abuso emocional, sexual y físico por más de 5 años. Después de ahí mi traficante fue muerto y lo mataron, y tuve que ir a la cárcel por 23 años. No solamente eso, también salí y ahora estoy aquí trabajando por la organización de National Council of Jewish Women, y le doy gracias a ellos por apoyarme y por siempre estar conmigo. Gracias.
I also want to point out that Ima Matul is also here, who is also a survivor of human trafficking. Also the survivor organizer at CAST. And I also want to present to you the poster that 18 survivors voted on last week and made the decision that this would be the final poster that we would put up throughout the county. So everyone will be holding it up if you want to get a photo op. Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Nice to be sharp.
Walk your way whenever you want. Yeah, that's it. 6 songs too.
Okay. Thank you, and we will take questions for a few minutes.
Chairman Knabe referred to some specific behavior that might indicate a relationship between a victim and a trafficker. Is there anything else, perhaps Maria or anybody else in cast could talk to us that would be like a tip that people can look out for, that would be, an indicator of a possible relationship?
Absolutely. So the question is, what are some key indicators to know if you come across a trafficking victim? Some key indicators would be that, I often tell people that you have a red flag, that something's just not right. It might be you see a worker in a restaurant or someone who's walking a dog in a neighborhood, but seems really afraid to make eye contact. If you're able to talk with the person, almost always they won't have access to their identification, or in the case of foreign national victims, they won't have access to their passport. There's some key indicators when in a person's physical demeanor. So I'll maybe give an example that might help. Recently we had a case where a young man, he was 19 years old, would ride his bike in a neighborhood every day, the same route every day, same time. And he would see a young woman who at the time was 16 years of age taking the dog out on the front lawn of a home. And he noticed that she wouldn't make eye contact. She seemed really afraid when he tried to say hello. And after a few times, he got to know her, and she finally disclosed to him that, in fact, she had been enslaved in that home and in that neighborhood for over 2 years. So I think it's whenever you have that feeling inside that something's not right, that this person seems afraid for no reason, it's a reason to actually try to engage them and see if they do have control over their freedom of movement. Thank you.
Other questions?
How did you guys become aware that SB 1193 wasn't being enforced or implemented?
There is a group of people across the state who are in touch, and there are a lot of coalitions who work on human trafficking, and so it's just been a known fact. It went into effect in April 2013, but we've all noticed with each other that it hasn't been implemented.
Other than LA County Metro?
All over the state. So there are grassroots and also...
We've done it in the city, like we posted in our workplaces in the city.
Right.
But statewide, advocates across the state have been in contact about this and what we can all do.
And so other counties are starting to implement this. Other counties are also starting to implement this as well with their coalitions. Alameda, San Diego, those are a couple of counties that have also started to implement SB 1193.
What was the response to businesses? You guys had that training on Sunday. What was the response from businesses who were coming in for that training? Were they aware?
We did not really have businesses that came in for the training. Maybe some people had businesses, but these are people who really want to go out there and go to the businesses. So today is really the official launch, so we don't have the response yet.
Mr. Mayor, forgive me if you've already mentioned this. I unfortunately arrived late, but can you tell me how this affects Los Angeles and how you feel about this program?
Sure. I'll just reiterate. I do have Channel 5. Don't worry. It's okay if you're late. We're glad you're here. Trafficking doesn't happen just in distant shores. It happens next door. It happens in your workplace. It happens in your neighbor's house. It happens in the mini mall down the street from you. It happens on our street corners. It happens to men, it happens to women, it happens to boys, it happens to girls. It's for work reasons, it's for sexual reasons. All of these things are part of trafficking. And there's more people trafficked today than ever in human history, more people enslaved in the world today than ever. So for the city of Los Angeles, it isn't enough. Traffickers get smarter and smarter, so the signs sometimes are less and less obvious. But it doesn't mean the problem isn't any more apparent. We can ourselves have an eye for this. We talk with people every single day. We visit people's homes. We see people who are working in domestic industries. We see people who are in our restaurants. Those are trafficked people. And we need through this to make sure that they get the help that they need. Because sometimes it's on us to be able to call these hotlines, but the most powerful and I think the best source is when women and men themselves who have been trafficked actually call in and get help. Then we are here and we bring the full force of law. We bring the full protection of this coalition to make sure that you're no longer enslaved.
Thank you.
Eric Garcetti, I don't see the police chief here, but in a situation where a person is illegal,
yes,
and they're being taken advantage of, and how can they be assured that they're not going to be scared to go to the police, or the police is not going to, in her situation that she had, that they didn't do nothing, and also they end up, she ended up paying a penalty more than what the person who the perpetrator did.
Folks who are here without legal documentation are protected due to a lot of the great work that this coalition did and in Washington to create a special visa that allows people to stay in the country, because in the past, that's exactly the fear people had, is that if I say something, I'll just get sent back, I'll go right back into the hands of the folks that made this happen in the first place, and I'm not going to ever escape from this. They can stay here now in the United States safely. I would say this in Spanish too. Personas sin papeles están seguros en este país, porque hay una visa que nosotros tenemos a proteger las víctimas de este. Es muy importante para las víctimas saber que esta es su protección.
Is there any training going on for the police officers or anybody that answers the phone call?
Yes.
As well as, you know, they probably know what to do. What about
Every officer in the Los Angeles Police Department now is part of our trafficking training. You know, this is something I went through in the United States Navy, because the military abroad is also, you know, we have millions of servicemen and servicewomen who can help with this issue. And we go through a training. We now also, in the city of Los Angeles, have every single police officer go through this training. And we have a task force set up in the LAPD specifically on trafficking. And I believe that there's something in the Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, can I just add, one of the things, we're actually using survivors to train county employees. And we've trained over 3,000 county employees already in recognition and how to deal with this. The one other issue as it relates to the undocumented and that whole court issue, one of the things that we've done in the county is to dedicate a courtroom for these young girls. In other words, what was happening was they come in, get a slap in the wrist, and their family would be right out in the parking lot waiting for them. So what we've done is dedicate a courtroom to this very specific issue, with judges that are tied to that. We've got the DA, we've got public defender, we've got the sheriff, we've got housing, we've got health services, mental health, to put the wraparound services around these young girls to make sure that they have the needs that they have, and also to deal with those kinds of needs, to get them in an isolated situation where they feel comfortable, more importantly, and one, to protect them. And housing continues to be the most difficult piece of all this, to find the protecting housing, whether it be in our probation camps or halls or whatever it may be. There's still girls inside there that, because once these young ladies, what they call outed and green lighted, that's death. And that's death. And so that's why it's so important to put these wraparound services, to make everyone aware like this, but more importantly, to have the wraparound services available at the other end when we receive them.
I just want to say one really quick thing. The question is a very astute question, which is why the phone numbers here are phone numbers independent of law enforcement. It's really easy for anyone to reach out in a way that's completely safe. The legislation and the closures reflect the fact that we know that there are some people who are in fear of coming forward to traditional law enforcement agencies. So these numbers assure the protection of people who are placing the calls. I also want to point out that our office, the City Attorney's Office, is a place where we can work with victims of human trafficking as well. And in fact, Councilmember Martinez and I are going to be later this month announcing a project to work on sex trafficking in the Valley. There's all kinds of work underway now. This has ignited, I think, a spark among all of us to do everything we can in a way that protects the safety and the dignity of those who've been trafficked.
So the law, does that allow, say if somebody, I'm a citizen and I want to report this and I happen to be found illegal, does that law apply to that person too? And, and it can be, is it anonymous?
This person can call anonymously to these phone numbers. Easy to do. Thank you.
What's important enforcement like, and what are the penalties like for businesses who don't comply?
Sure. The enforcement begins with notifying businesses of their obligations. As was mentioned earlier, we just sent letters out to businesses throughout the city. If businesses don't comply, and I fully expect businesses will, because it's an easy thing to do, and it's the right thing to do. There are penalties that escalate from $500 for the first instance to $1,000 later on, and my office is charged with enforcing those penalties. But as in so many areas, we all believe in the importance of educating people first to do the right thing. Only then will any further compliance enforcement be necessary. Thanks.
So we're going to open it up to one-on-ones because there are several people that have to go. So in the interest of time, thank you all for being here. Thank you to everyone as well. And if you want to speak with people, interview them one-on-one, and we'll start that.